Thank you for joining us for tonight's Q&A talk for the month of May 2024. Tonight, I am tonight's host, Q&A Talks Program Coordinator Cody McRae-Cullum. My personal pronouns are he, him, but if you're feeling bold, please feel free to refer to me by my preferred personal pronoun, the royal we. Q&A Talks connects rural parents and caregivers of LGBTQIA plus youth with the resources they need to ensure their children grow up safely and authentically. Q&A Talks is an initiative of Project Q&A and is made possible by grants from the Independence Area Community Chest and the American Library Association's Libraries Transform Communities focus on rural and small libraries grant partnership. The American Library Association Transform Communities. Libraries Transform Communities focus on rural and small library grant in partnership with the American with the Independence Public Library. So sorry, stumbling over it tonight, but no worries. Tonight, we are pleased to have Taté Walker. Taté Walker, they, them, Ina, is a Lakota citizen of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe of South Dakota. They are an award-winning two-spirit storyteller for magazine outlets, news publications, and anthologies. Taté is the author of The Trickster Riots, a full-length poetry collection from Abalone Mountain Press. Please welcome Taté Walker.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. Appreciate everyone joining us, and thank you to Project Q&A for bringing me on again. I love speaking with y'all. So Ampetu washte, chante washte yuhana petu shopikashto, dishoda tete we machiapi, wakpa washte mantahan. It's always a good grounding exercise and cultural affirmation to introduce myself and in my Lakota language, so thank you. My name is Taté, and my pronouns are they, them, ina. And what that essentially means is my colonial pronouns are they, them, but if you know Lakota, then you know that we aren't super specific and tied to gender roles, so you can utilize auntie and mom in those languages, and I will fully accept that responsibility. I'm Mini Konju Lakota. I'm a citizen of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. I live on O'odham lands in Phoenix, Arizona, where we're hitting triple digits already. We've been here for about 10 years, and it's a blessing. I want to take this time also to recognize that genocide is genocide and oppression is oppression, and our brothers and sisters and relatives in Palestine deserve our thoughts and our actions. And tonight's discussion is parallel to concepts and beliefs and values that folks across the globe are experiencing. So dedicated to Kasa. So who am I? I've got more than 20 years of experience as both a full-time newspaper reporter, freelance writer, other journalism gigs. My insurance comes from a full-time gig as a communications director for a tribal school district. I have all kinds of freelance activities happening. I'm, as Cody mentioned, I'm author of The Trickster Riots, plus several other anthologies, including one that just came out earlier this year by New York University Press called Good Eats, which explores intersections of ethics and food, and how my perspective in my essay was on how genocide has impacted both of those elements. Wow. We'll get started. There's other stuff. If you want to know more about me, check out my website, jtatewalker.com. Image description, if anyone's listening but can't see me, I'm queer, fat femme, light skin, dark hair. I wear a braid over my right shoulder. Wearing a black t-shirt, really super cool medallion. I've got my watermelon earrings and keffeya on. I have glasses that I hope don't make me look too pretentious, but quirky. Resting matriarch face, don't let it bug you. I'm smiling on the inside. All right, I'm gonna start sharing my screen here so we can chat about tonight's topic, which is Indigenous storytelling. And as both of those things, Indigenous and storyteller, I like discussing those as they relate to what it is to be two-spirit. If you know anything about intersections, you know there's no real disconnect between being Indigenous, being queer, and being a storyteller, at least in terms of my identity. All those things happen cohesively and within existence of each other. So I don't necessarily separate any of that, regardless of whatever role I'm playing, with professional life or storyteller life or activist life. So we start here. I don't have many slides for you, but it's always when we talk about critical conversations, especially with respect to um, Indigenous issues such as Two-Spirit, that we start sadly from the very beginning because too often context is lost and we need to have a basic understanding of things. And one of those things is that I'm only speaking from a perspective of myself, right? This isn't anything you can go back and go, Taté said every Two-Spirit does XYZ. Taté said every Indigenous person believes XYZ. That would be false. I'll never claim that. Depending on, you can ask 100 Indigenous folks what Two-Spirit is, or what queerness is, or what being Native is, and you'll get 100 different answers. So keep that in mind. With that, here in the United States, we have 574 federally recognized tribes. I like starting with that because 574 tribes, that's just federally recognized. There are hundreds of others that aren't federally recognized. Usually has to do with land base, but it also has to deal with what treaties were made way back when and the relationship of government to government. So these tribal nations, for instance, Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe, where I am a citizen, that citizenship is based on the sovereignty of my tribal nation. So, as we evolve and growth in our identities, right? So too does our understanding of our roles and responsibilities within those. And for me being from Cheyenne River, that's it. I'm not a member, right? Membership is for like Costco. I'm membership is for, Girl Scouts, right? It's not for citizenship. So I can fly across the country with my tribal ID, for instance. So that's really important. 574 federally recognized tribes mean there are at least that many perspectives on things like culture, religion, what foods you like to eat, how you dance, what kind of art you make, symbols and what they mean, as well as your understanding of queerness. So again, keep that in mind. We're not talking about a monolith here, right? This is my perspective. So okay, I've given these talks a lot, so there's always someone who's like, but you said every single one, and I know a Native who said, so bear with me. So let's see, when we talk about Two Spirits, the definition of such is probably what folks want to know most about. So let's keep going with my next slide here. Because the definition, I think, gives us really good starting place, but also a nice plot point in terms of what kind of storytelling we're talking about, right? So objectives of this, right? I want you to know, who Two Spirits are, right? The gender perspectives they're in, the roles and responsibilities we have, both past and present and future, right? And then who gets to tell stories of Two Spirits, about Two Spirits, and why that's important to talk about, all right? So before we get started, I wanted to share a poem with you that will hopefully introduce you to the definition of let's see, of Two Spirit, at least in terms of my take on it. Give me a second here. I thought I had it up and I didn't. Super. Maybe not. Just kidding. So this poem was published, let's see, there it is, by Pipe Wrench Magazine. And it's titled, My Pronouns Are Supernova. Someone draws a line between the words masculine and feminine. I'm told to balance a solitary somewhere along this lackluster constellation. Someone else shows me a gingerbread person labeled with the few words that might describe exactly what's in the unexplored reaches of my brain, my heart, and my pants. Many someones tell me no God will recognize the kind of black hole love I seek and offer the world. You're trying to tell me I don't fit into your middle seat narrow narrative. Like, I haven't lived my whole life threatened by total colonial eclipse. These spectrums, these cookies, these myths, these mind-numbingly basic settlers' expectations are desperate to enshadow everything this fat and digiqueer has dragged into the sunshine over 20-some years. You could neither appreciate nor appropriate the galactic possibilities of my heart. I am Wianwitko. The love I carry is medicine and responsibility for my people and the next 7 generations. I have sang and cried and danced at the sacred tree, my sweat and blood given in prayer, Inipi and Wiwangwachipi. And from these sacrifices, I became a dying star, a two-spirit storyteller full of light and matter, imagining a future where more stars grow and shine. Ask me what my gender is, and I'll tell you of the revolutions I've experienced with all kinds of moons and planets. I am not defined by ones and zeros, but the beautiful non-binary of limitless change. The universe is my blueprint, and my plans don't include closets or pigeonholes. Our Lakota ancestors tell us to abandon the colonial urge to overmanage the complexities of love and relationships. We are not social constructs. We are solar systems forever dancing, each the other's gravity, moving away, but always pulled back, bound by relationships to our families and non-human relatives, to lands and languages in time and space. Mitakyo Oyasin. Lakota history and science say we come from the stars, and to stars we return. Know that I have crossed great prairies and thickets of bigots and Catholic conversions, and I have passed through Wanagi, Takanju, and clear pathways free of settler trash to remove the pollution of phobics and haters and turfs so that our young people may make whatever orbits they choose. One day, this dying star will explode. Gassy stardust love, finding space to rest within the DNA of the stories and of the medicines and of the generations to come. We are unmappable, undefined by boxes and boundaries. Ask me what my gender is, and I'll tell you my rainbow boasts colors and textures your senses can't even comprehend. And my pronouns are supernova. So, with that, what, who, when, how is Two-Spirit? So, I love when people ask me, like, define Two-Spirit. And it's tough, right? Like when you talk about like oppression, politics, and genocide, right? And I just want to gesture at like all of this and be like, there you go. Anyway, so when you think about Two-Spirit in general, right? Hopefully you remember the poem I just read and you consider, the vast universe of queerness and that our identities are just limitless, ever changing and evolving. And that's Two-Spirit. Bye. No, I'm just kidding. So the term Two-Spirit was coined in 1990 at a gathering of LGBTQ++ Indigenous people. This was in Canada, and they had the intent of creating a non-pejorative, like umbrella collective term heretofore, we were within the colonial understanding of LGBTQ. And then if anybody sort of broke that down into indigeneity, Berdache was the word used, and that was, again, a pejorative used by colonizers to express like an effeminate man. And so not at all like inclusive of like just the vastness of gender identity. So in contemporary understandings, Two-Spirit is pan-Indigenous, right? It's a collective, an umbrella term, like I mentioned, and used primarily, I would say, in Turtle Island, Canada, United States, Mexico, Indigenous folks in general, but it incorporates all folks who identify as Indigenous, have that Indigenous responsibility. It acknowledges varied and diverse traditions of gender and sexual diversity, and roles and responsibilities that have existed since time immemorial. So Two-Spirit, right? I think a lot of folks get caught up on the two. They're like, if it's, if there's a vast identity, how come it's just two, right? Well, it's two is, don't think of two like the number two, but think of two like TOO, right? As in more than the sum of any one binary, right? It's we use the words we have available, and the Ojibwe understanding of Two-Spirit, right? Incorporated masculine and feminine identities. And that was, kind of an all-encompassing spectrum there. And so now we have more identities to come to terms with. For instance, non-binary is something I feel expresses who I am, but that wasn't something I had access to as a teenager, right? So I was like, I'm lesbian, I'm bisexual, whatever, right? And so we work with what we have, right? So Two-Spirit heretofore has worked for Indigenous folks. So let's see, we've got lots of various spellings of Two-Spirit, from using the number 2 and S, right? And that's usually what we include with the alphabet. So TS LGBTQIA plus plus. We also have Two-Spirit lowercase, Two-Spirit uppercase. We got hyphens, no hyphens. In general, like any other identity, you sort of ask the folk who are using such a term and see what they prefer. However, I work with many newspaper publications, and so there are, collective understandings of how we want to reference such folks. And I would say, in general, folks prefer a capitalized Two-Spirit. And as a wordsmith who has studied language for many, many years, many moons, I hate that hyphen. If you know anything about grammar, you know that a hyphen is like two words that are functioning as one adjective for a noun. And Two-Spirit, when it's capitalized and utilized in a way that represents like a nation-specific understanding of what queerness is, it's not just a box of identity, right? It's not like I'm gay and then a Two-Spirit or whatever, and a mom. Two-Spirit is for many of us a title, right? You wouldn't hyphenate pediatric doctor, right? Pediatric doctor is the title of someone who has worked very hard for the role that they have in the community, and they have a responsibility to conduct themselves in such a way that uplifts that community. So heals and is medicine to that community. And that, for many of us, myself in particular, that's what Two-Spirit is. So the hyphen devalues that to me, and there's no necessarily noun that needs to come after that. So you're not saying like Two-Spirit Taté, right? Or Two-Spirit person. Like Two-Spirit is the person. Two-Spirit is Taté, right? And in general, like sometimes folks will be like, an Indigenous Two-Spirit, and it's like that's inferred, right? It's kind of redundant. Two-Spirit is only for Indigenous people, which is another element to keep in mind. So using Two-Spirit, I think as we learn more about identities such as this one, we can be more purposeful and intentional with how not only we are using it in our vocabularies, but also how we're spelling it, and how we're recognizing people who claim Two-Spirit, who are Two-Spirit. So I think it's important to recognize that in Two-Spirit is just for Indigenous people. This is not an identity that your meditation will lead you to. If you are not part of a tribal community, if there aren't folks who claim you, right, a land base that claims you that is Indigenous, Two-Spirit is not for you. And that's not like, oh, you're not part of the club. It's like you have your own stuff, right? Go back to your people's understandings of queerness, right? Colonialism is a hell of a drug, right? It censors the most important parts of ourselves. And that's no less true for queerness across the globe. When queer people, like, if you know us, we're pretty magical, right? We have lots to share, and that's a weapon against colonizers. That's a weapon against genocide, right? And so they're scared of what can happen when you have these medicine people able and willing to share such things with their communities. And so they take it away, right? That's for Indigenous people boarding schools. That's removing us from our land and languages. And it's all connected, right? Which is why we're in solidarity with oppressed folks across the globe, because it's still happening. It's still happening. And we don't do anything about it. We're losing important and vital medicines of the world. So you have to be Indigenous to use Two-Spirit. However, not all Indigenous queer people and trans people identify as Two-Spirit. It's in general a self-identifier. So I work with a lot of youth, for instance, and if you were to ask any of the queer youth, queer Indigenous youth, do you know what Two-Spirit is? A lot of them would say no, right? We're still really playing catch up with Indigenous understandings of queerness, and that they are significantly different, not just in terms of like definition, but also in like especially in experience, as well as history, right? In terms of access to things. So that's really important to understand. I was just at a talk recently where a Native person was saying that Native kid, this is breaking it down. That Native kid can't say they're Two-Spirit; they haven't earned it. And I get what the person was saying, because later on I'll describe my own pathway to Two-Spirit. But that's such a like, why would we want to remove not just young people, but anyone from something like Two-Spirit, right? That has there's power in words, right? There's power in that kind of a story that someone tells of themselves. And so I really, I discourage, especially Indigenous folks, from policing Two-Spirit identity. It's evolving, and it should evolve, and understandings of it are different. And I think that medicine can be combined with other medicines, and we can come to a very peaceful understanding of who and what Two-Spirit is and what it can achieve. So not all Indigenous queer folks say they're Two-Spirit, though. So if you're walking around, your friend's like, I'm Native and queer, you would be like, oh, you're Two-Spirit, right? That's not a thing. You would ask them, right? Do you also consider yourself Two-Spirit? So for myself, right, I mentioned I'm non-binary, right? So that's my sort of colonial gender expression, but also I am Two-Spirit, and that's my title for myself as a queer person within my community, and how my community understands who I am and what medicines I bring. So with that too, keep going here. So my take on Two-Spirit is very personal, right? As all identities are. I went through ceremony in my own community, and was gifted the name by an elder, Wianwitko, which is roughly translated, right? We lose so much in translation, but roughly translated to crazy woman. And again, encourage you not to hold to the Western colonial English translation of what, say, a woman is, or even what the word crazy is, right? That's not like let go of all that because it's not the same thing. In fact, the more I learn about Lakota as a language, and the more I learn just how much of it is infused with colonial understandings of words, such as, say, queer. Like we're unlearning so much, and that's so beautiful, right? Um, uh, and so queerness is no different. And so crazy is less about mental health and more about your ability to see beyond, say, status quo or boxes people put you into, right? Like we had a leader, Tashunko Withko, Crazy Horse, right? And just acknowledged as somebody whose greatness was unsurpassed, right, as a leader. And a lot of that came from his ability to see beyond what other folks would consider normal, right? And that paid off for the community in many ways. And so Leon Withko, for me, is a very powerful name, it's an ancestral name, but also recognizes that I have medicine to share, and that medicine comes in the form of storytelling. And I take that responsibility seriously. It's a gift, it's a passion, and that's for me. Again, as I grow and evolve as a person, human being, as a relative to humans and non-humans, I understand Two Spirit as something different with every relationship I build. And we on Wheatco, being Two Spirit, um, is just so special. And I am grateful my community recognizes that piece of me. Um, all right, so I want to read another poem that sort of acknowledges just how fluid, if you will, Two Spirit is. I am I was part of a fellowship through, it just finished this past year, or this year and the spring. What is it was Poetry in the Senses through Arizona State University and UC Berkeley. It was a joint collaboration. Natalie Diaz and Beth Piatot, two phenomenal poets in and of their own right, but also educators. Natalie Diaz won the Pulitzer Prize for her poetry book. Were our instructors and gave us some amazing reflections. And a big one we tackled throughout that semester of our fellowship was about reclamation. And I just received word that this poem, I Am Water, was accepted to Litmus Press for a queer Two-Spirit anthology. I'm pretty excited about that. So I Am Water, and I should probably just I'm going to share this because I'm pretty proud of it. So one thing that this fellowship challenged me to do was think, if you will, Wheatco, think crazy, think out of the box. When I tell stories, I would say I'm very, well, if you have it, I'm very circular. That's the elder in me. But I also, what would you call it? I want to tell stories that people understand. I don't want to get too frilly. While I love poetry, like I get it, poets, metaphors, and things are like other things, but also I want you to understand what I'm trying to say too. And so I tend to be very like, just read it like this. But I also really admire folks who can put poetry into a visual element, right? You can experience the poem in multiple ways. And so I was challenged to do that with this poem, and we see it. Let me see if I can share this. We see it as a, hold on, come up as a water droplet. And I'm pretty excited with how it turned out. All right, so you can see those. They had a lot of different, it came out different ways, and I really like how this last piece came out. So, I am water. You could follow along. I am water. I am named and born for the air, but elementally, I am 2 parts Lakota, 1 part Irish, and 97% salty auntie. A full drop of Osteca, queer enough to get you wet. Thirst and salivate, storm and weep. I am a deluge, right? A flash tense of desire. I am water, surface tensioned like a dammed river pushing against fathomless grief and memory, where former lovers call me shallow and strangers cower from the icy blast of my resting matriarch face. Trademark. Oh, but I am a great swimmer, a leviathan, patient and meticulous. Currents move me toward a dusky horizon, promising the peace of dark things, where the distance between bath and baptism is 60 degrees, a woahanti of sin. I am water. My sweat is a ceremony, hot and polluted, hissing against the heartbeats of stones. In my songs, breath becomes blessing. Prayer hands stretched skyward transform into vessels catching whatever leftovers exist of a life diluted by exclusionary dogma, drinking deeply of my tears. Dying wines resurrect as leeches, eat of my petrified bones and be purified. I am Mini Kalusha, always journeying back to myself. Constant transformation, creation and destruction as one, as all, a cycle as promised as the wowachi between moon and sun. My waves wash away the bite of love and loss and forgetting and reclaiming. It said there's no stepping into the same river twice, yet the waters of millions of yesteryears exist in the here now. I am everlasting. So I'm pretty jazzed about that one. It took a lot. And what was cool about the fellowship is it included more than a dozen other just fabulous poets in their own right. Most of them having MFA backgrounds or just fine arts backgrounds in general, where they have learned the delicate dance of words, metaphor, and putting those on pages that folks can get that emotion from. Right, poetry is emotion, right, in form. I tend to think of even certain, say, paintings or even just viewing specific landmass or even a person, right? That which evokes emotion is poetry, I think. And so these folks that took this fellowship, had the fellowship with me, really engaged with each other's poems, and the feedback I received was just pretty phenomenal. And one of them was, put it in a visual element of a droplet of water. And I liked how they came out. So thank you for listening for that.
Absolutely.
Almost. Oh, what was that?
It's there's a term in literature, it's called concrete poetry, where you shape the poem into like a physical form on the page. Yeah.
Yes, when I
Yeah,
do
yeah.
my poetry workshops, that's
Mhm.
one thing we always go for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that actually sort of wraps up my yeah, well, so I have another dear legislators, your bigoted laws don't belong in these lands. So I live in Arizona, and I'm from upstate South Dakota. States like those go through these disgusting and harmful annual rituals in our legislatures to debate humanity and identity of queer people every single year, right? That's trauma, that's harm. So whenever I go to testify against homophobic, transphobic laws, my first thing to do is I always remind lawmakers that they're trying to force their gross beliefs on lands that have never made such demands on people, especially our young people. In fact, whenever you step foot on these so-called United States, you're stepping on lands that have always embraced and uplifted queer love and experiences, and for how much stronger those people make our communities. Settler governments are guests here and have run out their welcome on Indigenous lands. Hashtag land back, hashtag free Palestine. All right, so I think I'm ready to move into chat if you want, but just as a reminder, it's my story and I'll make it gay if I want to. Just some quick tips if you're doing some storytelling, which I think we can chat about, Cody, if you want to later. But
Yeah,
the big thing is aim for inclusion and embrace humility. The inclusive piece is like who's missing and why did I miss them, right? Like I'm constantly um like anything, right? When we tell stories, it's words, but it's also how we dress, right? It's we're actively telling stories in every aspect of our lives. And to be purposeful and intentional in that is a storyteller's responsibility, or at least it should be. Along with that though, humbleness goes a long way, right? No one's 100% every time. No one should be. In Lakota, there's this concept of a spirit bead, and you can approach even storytelling with this concept of you understand that nothing's perfect, and so the spirit bead is purposefully put into your work as a mistake, as it's not supposed to be there, right? A glaringly different bead, for instance, than the one that you've been using in a pattern. A word purposefully spelled wrong in a poem. Wearing specific earrings that maybe clash with other elements of your outfit, right? It's an acknowledgement that nothing's perfect, neither are you, and to be humble. And if we can get through those two things, I think our stories will just be that much stronger. So I'm happy to share this this presentation with anyone who wants it, so I can either send it to you, Cody, put it on the website, or we can email it, whatever. But it's for anyone's use. And I'm done. Fiend.
awesome. Thank you so much for that. And also, I would love definitely to promote that. So yeah, thank you. Yeah. Ooh, just the poetry just got me, and also the experience you bring to this, and also the real like wholesome authenticity. I love it. I love it so much. All right. Thank you to all who tuned in, and to our partners at the Independence Public Library and our funding sources, the Independence Area Community Chest and the American Library Association. Thank you to Taté Walker for a phenomenal presentation. If you would like to continue the conversation with Taté on Zoom, follow the link in the comment. Be sure to tune in next month for Q&A talks. We will be speaking with Deneen Akers on Wednesday, August 21st, 2024, who will be discussing passing the torch of activism. If you would like to find out more about Project Q&A, our work, or to view past Q&A talks, visit our website and follow us on social media. To support the work we are doing in rural communities, please consider making a tax-deductible donation today. Thank you so much for watching our Q&A talk this month. If you have any questions for our presenter, follow the link in the comments. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.